Hey, Jen. So, welcome back for part two.
Yeah, we're back.
So, in this episode, we are going to really focus on the reselling business aspect as it relates to reselling jewelry, because I know you dropped a lot of gems in part one, but I really want to give our listeners and our viewers an idea of a realistic view of what it takes to really make this work, because like you mentioned earlier, a lot of people think that, oh, this is going to be quick money, it's going to be easy, and people are just going to flock to my store and everything's going to sell. And we
Right.
both know that's not how it works.
That is not how it works. Yeah, and so my background, I am an entrepreneur and have owned in the past businesses, that are small businesses, but still like $2 million companies that are, operating budgets of like 2 million. So while right now I am choosing to be a full-time employee and do this on the side as a side hustle, I really think of it in terms of being a business and how I can grow it and make it profitable. And I do think that I was under the impression when I started that, it was going to be easy, and that,
Yes.
because I'm a business person, I know how to buy and sell, that it would um, be more like buying and selling commodity, like things that people use every day because people wear jewelry every day. It's not really that easy. It does require knowledge of the product, and you really have to do your due diligence. But in terms of building a company, you know, I am doing it slow and steady because I believe that, I wasn't an expert in jewelry when I started. So growing slow and steady and adding knowledge and continuing to define my brand, continuing to put up the guardrails, the rules of my business, the rules of how I buy and the rules of how I sell, and growing kind of slow and steady um, is a safer and more profitable venture than just going out and trying to do a 10,000 item store right out the gate.
Yeah, and I think there's parts to this that you really kind of need to master and hone in on, because what I've learned is that you really have to, like I said before, you really need to get your sourcing dialed in, and
Yes.
then you really need to get the whole selling part mastered, because you can have all this gorgeous stuff, but if you don't know how to take decent pictures and write a proper listing and really use those keywords and tags and all that stuff, no one's going to find your item, no one's going to sell,
Yeah,
because there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of pieces of jewelry out there, and
that's right.
depending on what platform you're on too.
I think myself, I started as an everything seller, and
Hmm.
when I was getting the the feedback from famous YouTuber, big YouTubers in the reselling community to niche my business, I thought jewelry was the niche. But no, it's within the niche there's a niche. So you really do need to niche down within the jewelry category to, something, whatever your thing is going to be. And and you will do that by deciding what your brand is about and who your customer is. And once you know what your brand is about and who your customer is, your sourcing will get more dialed in. Then you need to really think about cost and resale value. And I think a lot of people think of the retail model, which is buy at 50% and sell, two times the price. So you buy it for $5, sell it for $10. That does not translate in this today market. You cannot make
Right.
money buying and selling at two times because of taxes. You pay taxes on your sales, which is going to, eat away a percentage. You have shipping supplies that eat away at your percentage. You pay eBay fees. You have a store fee. You have commissions that you pay when you sell. So that eats away at that double, and you're going to end up with nothing. So, people need to really dial in what is going to be their buy and sell rate. And I think if you can, there's a famous YouTuber, a top reseller YouTuber named Chris, who has a daily refinement, and they post a lot of really good reseller content. Has nothing to do with jewelry, but it's great content. And
Yeah,
he
I was
talks.
in his group, so I know.
Okay, well, he talks a lot about buying at $8, selling at $30.
30. Mhm.
Yeah, so that's a good recipe for bread and butter purchases. Um, but what is going to be your brand rules and guidelines. And I think if you cannot 3x your money on a purchase, it's not worth doing the purchase. And obviously, the goal for you should be even higher than that. My goal is always 5x, and 3x is the minimum.
Right.
I have broken that rule many times, and it has never worked out. Maybe twice it worked out, but the double doesn't work. And I thought, oh, but this is an expensive piece, right? So if I buy this for 300 and I can flip it for 600, that's a $300 profit. And so even after fees and everything, I feel pretty good about that. But if that piece sits in your inventory and doesn't sell right away, you're sitting on a huge chunk of money that where the return is really not worth. You could sell 4 or 5 bread and butter pieces in 2 or 3 days that would be the equivalent of what you would make off that one piece that's hogging up money, that's just money sitting there. And then you end up discounting it, and then you end up selling it for just a tiny profit, which after all the fees, you either lose money or break even. So anyway, don't do that. I've done it 1,000 times. You'll probably do it too, but
I've done that too.
don't do it. Don't do it. Just set your guardrails, 3x minimum, shoot for 5x or more, whatever
Mhm.
your branded capabilities are. And that is the next. Once you've decided who your brand is, who your customer is, and you start sourcing, rule number one, what's your buy rate? And you have to be able to say no. Like, I love the people I buy. When I see their pieces, I get really excited. And in the auction setting, your heart is racing. You want it. It's competitive.
Yes.
It goes up above your minimum. You think, oh, I could maybe do more. I could maybe do more. And then you create these dreams in your mind where you're going to sell it for more, and it never works out. So have the control and the discipline to stick within your buying, rules. I also don't buy broken pieces. I don't buy anything that needs repaired. I don't buy
Mhm.
anything that's missing a piece. I just
Right.
don't do that because I know for me, I'm not going to take the time to fix it and do it. So create those rules and stick to them.
Yeah, and there's also this concept too of fast nickel, slow dime.
Right.
And so a lot of times, I know when I was, and even today, I still kind of sometimes struggle with that because if you're selling on any one of the major platforms, usually there is a make an offer option. So if you go in like you said, "Oh, I want to pay 300 for this piece. I'm going to list it for 600." Well, someone may come along and say, "I'll offer you 450."
Mm-hmm.
Now you're putting yourself in a little bit of a pickle, right? Because you're like, "Well, I really want to sell this piece because it costs so much and I don't want my money to be tied up." But at the same time, you're not getting that 3x, 5x, whatever. So I think a lot of people don't think about that because um, yes, there's certain pieces that will sell quickly, but they may not sell for, the sale price that you want. And then you also have to give yourself some wiggle room for offers because 9 times out of 10, if it's something that's really beautiful or something that's popular and in demand, you're going to get offers and you're going to have to make the decision, do I want to take less or am I going to hold out and possibly hold on to this for another year
Right.
and and
And
maybe not make the sale?
right. And sales are a big component. They're a big driver of traffic. So I do put my items on sale, and I have rules about how much I'm willing to go up to and what my average sale price is going to be. But sales bring traffic. So you also need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to have that 15% discount. If you're 2Xing and taxes is 10% and discounting 15% and your shipping costs you 5%, it just doesn't work out. It's just not,
Right.
you don't make any money. In fact, you can lose money pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Find yourself losing it.
Right.
So you definitely want to, set that goal.
Yeah, so these are things people need to take into consideration. Just because you're listing a piece at a certain price doesn't always guarantee it's going to sell at that price, right? Because, like you said, sometimes we'll offer coupons, sometimes we'll do markdowns, sometimes
Mhm.
we'll even pay for promotions, which the buyer's not going to see, but we're going to see in on our end that we paid 10% to get this item shown higher in the listings, or in
Yeah.
search rather. So when you are buying, you really need to pay attention that there's so many factors and there's a lot of variables that will ultimately affect the final sale price. And that's
Yes.
something people don't really think about.
And so one thing I'd like to jump off of that with is the turnaround time.
Mhm.
So jewelry does tend to have a slower sell-through rate than some other categories, like women's clothing or men's
Right.
clothing. Women's clothing, men's clothing, typically they're looking to sell within 90 days. And they can
Mhm.
go online and look at this specific shirt and see exactly, how fast it's selling. Just for those who don't know, you can go on to eBay, you can search for that item, you can then see how many of that item are for sale, and then you can click the sold filter and it will show you how many of those items have sold in the last 90 days. So
Right.
if there are 100 for sale and there are 100 sold, then that's a 100% sell through rate for that item for 90 days. And if you find anything that's 100% sell through rate, you should buy it. But with
Yes.
jewelry, it is not so clear. Just because you have sterling silver with rose quartz, and you search that and there's 10,000 available and 8,000 sold, it's not so clear that your sterling silver with rose quartz is going to sell. It's not so clear what those keywords are that are pushing the higher sales, or how you're searching it can be an effect. It's just not as clear. Also, like, you might search J King necklaces and see, and it might look like a terrible sell through rate, but you might have to just know through your experience and through your store that lapis lazuli necklaces sell. And if it's a J King and it's lapis, that it's going to sell. So there's just so many factors that make it harder for us to know what the sell through rate is. But we do need to put a focus on how quickly our items are selling. And you need to be willing to liquidate the items that aren't selling for whatever you can get for them and keep it moving. So don't if you have items that have been sitting in your store for 1 year, let it go. It's
Right. Time
time
to
to
move
let
it
it
out.
go. Move it out, and focus, put your focus and your attention on the items, that are your first 90-day items. And then anything that's older than 90 days, it's just got to go on sale. It's got to go on clearance. You got to get your money back and reinvest that money in something that's going to sell more quickly.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point, because I know in the beginning I had a lot of emotional attachment to stuff. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I can't sell this for $5, I need to sell it for 20 or whatever the amount was, And so like you said, you really have to see this as a business, and you really have to understand that this is about making money. We're not in the business of storage. We're not in the business of going back and forth repeatedly, because somebody is nickeling and diming you, or saying, can I get this for $2 less than it's like, you just don't have the time to do that, especially if you're doing this at a volume where you're trying to create either a full-time income, or you're trying to get, as much as you can get for the work that you're doing. Because one of my friends, she makes a really good point. She's a jewelry seller too, full time. And she says, it takes me just as much work to list and ship a $5 necklace as it does a $75 necklace.
That's right.
So why would I not want to maximize my time, and my effort, and in finding things that sell at a much higher, faster sell through rate? So I think people really need to understand that.
Yeah. One of my rules is I don't sell anything under $15 or
Hmm.
14.99. It might go on sale for less than that, but I don't buy anything that I can't sell for $15. It's just not worth my time. And I do find that the $15 to $25 items in my store that I've cultivated sit the longest. And I believe that part of the reason for that is it's really hard to find keywords to sell generic things.
Yes.
So it's just harder to find a customer for that in my store and with what I've developed. So it you have to focus on there's a couple of key components. You need to have bread and butter items. You need to have those items that are at an affordable price point for your customer, that might not be the thing that they wear to the gala, but it's the thing they're going to wear every day.
Hmm.
Then you need to have your collectible pieces or your slightly higher end pieces that your collectors, your clients are going to buy to treat themselves. They're going to buy it for their birthdays, for their, for their celebrations. And then you want to have a couple of marquee pieces that are going to attract traffic to your store, people who have never seen that item from that designer or are really, really sparkly, amazing, something amazing to drive traffic to your store. So you're going to have all three of those items. Sourcing for those items should be, looking at that 3x, 5x. If you can't get it at the right price, you're shopping in the wrong store. You're shopping in the wrong place. I find jewelry is really difficult to get at estate sales and garage sales because they've looked it up on eBay and they know what it goes for. And oftentimes
Yeah.
the jewelry is one of the things that they don't want to let go for cheap. So you really do need to dive into other places to source what you're looking for. And for me, I would rather pay up for one piece of jewelry than buy a huge pile of stuff that I don't that might all kind of be average. Because again, every piece takes time to list, and if it's not a standout piece or an attractive piece that is going to pull the crowds, then it's not worth my time. So you might, in my buying and sourcing, I will pay up for a beautiful piece, um, and just buy one at a time rather than trying to buy a whole mountain of stuff and make it into make something out of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've made that same mistake too when I didn't know any better. I just, you learn very quickly that not all jewelry is is good jewelry, and as a matter of fact, I'm looking at some pieces now that I need to do something with. But let's talk about how you move these pieces, because we talked a little bit in part one where you said that you use Whatnot to basically liquidate those pieces that are just not worth the time to list on eBay or probably won't sell for very much.
Yeah, so it's great when you're buying pieces and selling them for what you thought you would get. Great. That's my core business. And I don't go off the 90-day time period because jewelry does have a little bit of a longer rate. So it takes me about 6 months. At about 6 months, I'm putting pieces aside and saying, it's still up in my store at the moment, but it's in a pile for a clearance sale. And I will go on Whatnot and I'll let all my people that buy know I'm going to liquidate, here's the brand names and stuff. And they'll come in and I'll start auctions at $3, and it might sell for $3 and I might lose money on all of those items, but I'm moving them on. They're not selling in my store, and I'm taking whatever I get for them and reinvesting it in something that's going to be profitable.
Yes.
Learning, Yeah, and learning and also making some people really happy and making friends with some people. I've also done some trades. You know, you get people with on Whatnot, and if you get friendly with them, maybe before I do a sale, I'll reach out to one or two of the buyers that I see on Whatnot, and I'll say, "Hey, these are pieces that I'm going to clearance. Are you interested in buying it as a bulk unit, or are you interested in doing a trade?" And sometimes people will trade me, you know, I'll send them a whole pile of stuff that doesn't sell for me, and they'll send me one or two really nice pieces that I know I can flip for a profit. So trades are also very common among our jewelry community.
Oh, that's interesting because I've never done trades. I mean, I've had people like offer to buy my stuff, wholesale bulk, whatever, but I've never had anybody uh, do a trade. So that's good to know that
Well,
that's
you have
another
to
option too.
trust. You know, when you're trading, you have to have some trust. So it's generally going
Hmm.
to be people that you're in a community with, a
Right.
community like Whatnot or some kind of other jewelry antique dealer kind of situation. But yeah, it's a great deal. I have a woman that loves Sajin goddess pieces. And so anytime I see them at an auction, I will buy them, even though they're not really for my customer, because she always gets really great Ripka Barbara Bixby pieces. And then I'll send her the Sajin goddess pieces, and she'll send me back her Ripka Bixby pieces. And it's a great little,
Oh, that's
deal.
great.
And, we're both she's buying them at whatever she's buying them at, and I'm buying them at whatever I'm buying them at, but we're trading at the retail value. So it kind of works out great for both of us.
Oh, yeah. I need to find a jewelry buddy like that then.
Yeah. So yeah, when you're liquidating, old stuff, yeah, you're going to lose money sometimes, and that's another reason why you can't 2x your profit, why you've got to at least be shooting for 5x. I know Rachel Strickland, who's a really popular reseller
Yes, I love
online.
her.
She has like a 10x rule. Her goal is always 10x. I find with jewelry, especially higher end designer pieces, it's almost impossible to 10x a piece. But if you can't 5x, then it's just not the right deal.
Yeah, and it's really not worth it because the work and the time it takes, you really need to maximize your return on that in profit and in time, saved, because I don't want to spend hours listing, like you said, $5 items, $7 items, whatever the case may be, because I know that same exact work, maybe even less effort, because I would only have to list one piece. I could get
Yeah.
the same amount of money, make the same amount of money as opposed to selling five cheap pieces.
Another point that might be interesting to people is because I have a higher end client base, and they are typically, my customers are over 40, wealthy women, whatnot. I do send everything out in a box with tissue paper, with a thank you note, and it's a very nice little package. And so that does cost money. Every time I ship a piece, it's like $1.50 or something out of my pocket to make it look high end and expensive. And I find that I get a lot of reviews on that. And I think it does help prompt people to do a review for me because they've gotten a thank you and all this stuff. So that costs money. Then sometimes I will do flat rate shipping. On eBay, if I live in Seattle and the buyer's in New York, they might have to pay like $8 in shipping for something that weighs 1 ounce. So they're going to tend to buy from a different seller that's closer to them where they're going to get a
Right.
better deal in shipping. So I have chosen in my business to do flat rate shipping where items that are 4 ounces or less, are $4.99 no matter where you live in the country. Sometimes I pay less, sometimes I pay more, but you have to factor that in. And then the way that eBay works is they charge their commission off of the total price plus the shipping. So you're paying them a commission off of the shipping. So if you so you need to have some room in there, because if you look at like, okay, this is how much I sold the piece for minus the eBay fees, minus the shipping, minus the promotion if I did one, minus the sale price discount that I gave them. Okay, then I have my labor fee. That's the money that I made for my time. So after you've chipped away at all of those things, There's not a lot. People think that the goal is to make 50%, and it's not. Really, if your business is making 20 to 25%, you are doing well. And so you need to look at, okay, well, if I'm trying to make a $50,000 a year income, that's going to be 20 to 25% of your gross sales. So you would need to sell $200,000 of jewelry to make $50,000, is kind of one way that you can look at it. And then you think, wow, okay, I got to sell 2,000. That's a lot. $200,000 in jewelry is a lot. How are you going to do it? That's
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
reasons why I decided to build my store around a couple of designers who had a little bit more on the higher end types of pieces, because I'm not going to get where I want to go $10 at a time. I need to really be doing $75 to $150 per unit sales to get where I need to go with the number of listings that I'm putting up and the time that I'm putting in at the moment.
Yeah, and that's the beauty about this business, because you really can create a business model that works for you, and it doesn't have to be what anyone else says or what anyone else does. I know a lady, all she does is jewelry lots. That is
Mm,
all she does. And with the lot jewelry lot model, she's able, like, nothing is lower than $25 for her, depending on what size lot she's doing. I
yeah.
think she does like 1 pound bags or something like that. And those start at like $25. And then she goes all the way up, and that's great too, because she knows that nothing is going to be less than $25. And people love to buy those lots, like we talked about before. People love to take a chance.
People love
And
a mystery.
yeah, but the thing is like, that could work too, right? Like, you don't
There's
only have to have high-end pieces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a huge vintage market. I know a lot of people that focus on vintage. They are very knowledgeable about what people are looking for and how the backs should look. And, you know, there's the brooch community alone. Like, you could just sell vintage brooches and make a whole business out of that. And they have a lot of high low that you can buy from. So there's just, yeah, it can be anything that you want it to be, which is the fun of creating a business. You're creating something, a playground to play inside of. I love buying. I love buying more than I love selling, which I think is
Yeah, me
common.
too.
Um, but it's a playground for me, and I while it is a job and it takes time, and sometimes I'm sourcing and I'm bored out of my mind because I'm not seeing what I want to see, and it can be very frustrating. Or I'm listing and I just don't know what to call something, and I don't know I don't have enough information on it. There's all these things that make it a job, but it is really a playground, and you can create whatever you want. And if you find that you're in a business you don't want to be in, you can change it.
So true. And that's the beauty of eBay, because you literally can sell anything. I mean, it's as long as it's not something, illegal or
Yes.
something like that, you really can sell anything, because
I
I
do
haven't.
have a category called collectibles where I will literally sell whatever I pick up. So I have my jewelry store that's very detailed categories, and I have women's, like, handbags and accessories, which is kind of things that I've picked up along the way. And then I have this collectibles category that is literally whatever I want to put in there. But I do find that it takes away from the jewelry store when I get too into those other sections. So I have pulled back and sort of clearanced out a lot of that stuff and try to keep it super, like, one page.
Now, do you do any selling, like, outside of online? Because I also have an antique mall booth
Oh,
where I sell. Well, I used to sell jewelry in there, but I don't anymore, only because there's a ton of jewelry sellers in there, and my stuff just wasn't getting seen.
I see.
Because I mean, literally, like, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of booths in there, and
Yeah.
all they have is jewelry, and they had a lot of nicer stuff than what I had.
Okay.
But I do sell, like, some vintage glasswares and collectibles
Ooh.
and stuff like that in my antique mall booth. So do you sell anywhere else, that's not online?
I do consignment.
Oh, okay.
And
That's good too.
Yeah, so I've played around with a lot of the different sites. And so I've sent things to ThreadUp, I've sent things to the Real Real, I've sent things to a local store, like two local consignment stores. And it takes a little bit of understanding. It's a whole new world of selling, right? So, you want to go into these things gingerly and do your research and test them out. And everyone will have different experience, but I have kind of found where I can go, where I could send pieces and what I can expect for them. And in particular with the higher end jewelry, consignment is not always a bad idea because the more expensive the piece, the higher your payout is. So if the piece is going to sell above $400 or $500, then sending it to the consigner takes less time than me actually listing it, putting it in my inventory and waiting for a sale. And I know that my customers typically are under 300 in their purchases. I have the occasional marquee piece that sells, but generally so if it's above my average price point, I might send it to a place like the Real Real or one of the local stores. They'll sell it for me, and because it's such a high dollar item, the commission is much higher. So I'll do that, and then what happens is I hate selling clothing. I absolutely hate
Me
selling
too.
clothing. I hate measuring it. I hate photographing it. I
Hate
absolutely hate it,
storing it, cleaning it. I am the same exact way, girl.
but I love buying it. So it's hard. It's so hard. And the thing is, the women who have the jewelry I'm looking for, they have really nice wardrobes. So I will, see what they have. And like, it's really hard for me to stop myself sometimes from buying their clothes. So I just consign them. I don't, I'll only buy what I know I can consign. And with consignment, you're the price point is very important because right, they're going to sell it at whatever they're going to sell it at, and you don't really know what that's going to be, and they can discount that item whenever they feel like it. So you really have to be able to buy low in those scenarios. And so I have like a system with which if I'm in an auction and there are designer clothes being sold for next to nothing, I will pick them up. The other thing is they can reject an item. So you might send it to a consigner and they'll say, not for us. And
Yeah.
then you're stuck with an item. Then you got to put it on your eBay store and and then they just sit in my money pile because I don't want to list them. And I have a room full of clothes right now that was just a buying mishap. I thought I was going to do a whatnot show with it, and then I decided that's not for me. And now I just have a pile of clothes taking up so much. The great thing about jewelry is I have it 100% contained to this beautifully designed closet
Yes.
that is just for the jewelry. I could close that door and I would not see my business at all. But I have bought all this other stuff that is just filled my extra room. And I just don't know what I was doing. Anyway, not the point, but we all do this. So consignment is a great way to buy some other things and sell them, but you need to really test those. Each one has lots of rules and different ways, and you can really easily get caught with a bunch of inventory that they don't want, and then you have to find these other ways to sell. So I don't do events. I haven't done any jewelry shows or anything like that. I'm not opposed to it. It's just I'm a part-timer, and I limit the time I spend on my company because I do work 40 hours a week. Um, but so yeah, no events, no other things that I've been doing, but I do consignment.
Yeah. Well, and a friend of mine, she did what she called a pop-up shop for her jewelry, and it was like she did a little I don't know if it was like a craft fair or something like that. You know how this was back during the holiday time.
Mhm.
And so she got a table and she just kind of set up her jewelry. Now it wasn't like her high-end best stuff, but it was probably the stuff you and I would sell on whatnot. And she said she did amazingly well because people just got excited because they just see the jewelry all spread out and they saw, all of these things. And she said she was selling it. It was like 3 pieces for $5 or something like that. And
Okay.
she cleared
So
it all out.
I did prepare to sell at Renaissance Fair. But then for
That's
medical,
good
I had a
too.
medical situation and I had to have a surgery or whatever that conflicted with doing
Oh.
the show. But I will tell you, those kinds of targeted events are very
Mhm.
profitable. And people at Renaissance fairs in particular, there's a lot of research behind what they buy and what they're willing to spend their money on. And if it goes into their costume, if it will contribute to their costumes, they're willing to spend a good deal more than like other booths where it might be like housewares or things for your home
Mhm.
or average items that aren't really Renaissance themed. So I actually bought a ton of jewelry that was like themed for the Renaissance fair. And then unfortunately I couldn't make it. But I do think that themed events like that, if you can curate your collection, if you have 10,000 pieces of jewelry and you can pull 500 that fit that theme,
Right.
I think those are great places to sell. I did participate as a seller, as a employee for someone at like a psychic festival, and there were a lot of jewelry sellers there selling stone jewelry,
Right.
and it was very competitive. Too many sellers selling all the same stuff, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that as a seller myself. Like, it's a great niche, but you have to figure out what you can do to differentiate yourself from the other sellers. And I would caution people against like having too many businesses. So it's like, if I could sell my core eBay inventory at an event and it was a good fit for that stuff, that would be, what I would be looking to do.
Yeah, and, the other thing is too is sometimes when you do these events, so they don't have, like, a bunch of people selling the same stuff, they will have, like, they'll say, "Oh, we only
Exclusivity.
have." Yeah, they'll say, "Oh, we can only have 1 jewelry seller, 1 candle seller, 1
Yeah.
wax melt seller," you know what I mean?
That's a good
And
question to ask when you're considering an event for sure.
yes, and it's funny because I was gonna try this wasn't recently, this was maybe about a year ago, and there is an because I don't wanna say the name, but I'm sure people will know what it is. There's an MLM company that sells jewelry,
Yes.
and everything's $5, and
Yes.
so, because that they already had that seller in there,
Mm,
I couldn't sell even though my jewelry is nothing like that, like, it is
right.
nothing like that, and I don't even think people would like, the people that buy that would not be looking for my stuff, and the people that bought my stuff would probably not be looking for that.
Right.
But the thing is because they already had that person renting a table, they said, "Oh, no, we can't have any more jewelry sellers." So, like you said, you just gotta really, really ask a lot of questions if you are gonna do some of these craft fairs or holiday
Yeah.
bazaars, whatever they're called.
The thing with with these events is you have to look at your time to profit ratio, because when I'm sitting at home, I could be doing a lot of things while I'm listing and multitasking and handling a lot of different things. So the time
Mhm.
gets a little bit spread out. But with these events, you're really committing a full day. So you need to consider what you can walk away with and consider who the customer is that's coming. Like for me, I sell a lot of Judith Ripka and Barbara Bixby kind of higher end designer pieces, second hand. They're for a very specific kind of lady. So if I went to just a general Saturday market or some kind of, city fair, the chances that my buyer is going to walk by very slim. So yeah, I would
And even if she did, it would probably only be like 1 or 2 people. It's not like you would have, hundreds of people.
Yeah, I
looking for
would
that.
need to be at an event where people are looking to spend $100 to $500 on a on jewelry specifically, and those events, I mean, whoosh, we should create something like that. That would be amazing. But I don't know of anything in my area.
Yeah, where are you? You're in
I'm in Seattle.
Seattle? Yeah, and I'm in Las Vegas, but yeah, that would be nice if they did have something like it was just a vintage jewelry market, or it's just a jewelry market too, I mean, sell
Yeah,
whatever,
attract the
handmade jewelry, psychic gemstone jewelry, whatever.
yeah, attract the people who specifically, I mean, jewelry at a certain price point is an easy sell. Like anything under $15, if you're at an event, people are willing to just drop $15 to buy a cute little something or a gift for someone else. But that's just not what I do. So,
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, let me make sure that I've asked everything I wanted to ask as it relates to the business side of reselling. I also want to go back to what you talked about on shipping too, because I know jewelry buyers are very, very picky, and presentation is everything, especially if they're buying a high end piece. And so, this isn't the type of thing you can sell on eBay casually and just throw in some bubble wrap, throw it in a poly mailer, and ship it out. That's not good. So we want to make sure that we're creating an experience. That's really what I've learned too. Even people who don't buy the expensive stuff, because not everybody's in the same income bracket, but
right.
everyone, all ladies who buy jewelry, they want to feel pretty. They want to feel like this, they're treating themselves. And so if we can kind of create that experience at whatever level, I think you will kind of cultivate your own following, repeat buyers, and people that really enjoy just buying from you. I have people that they don't necessarily have a specific preference of the type of jewelry, but they just like buying with me because they like me. Right. And
Yeah.
so over time, you will find those types of buyers who they just love shopping with you, and they'll buy whatever you whatever you want to show.
I think what's important for this conversation, we've talked about building a brand, who's your
Yes.
customer, source for that customer, build your rules and guidelines around your sourcing so that you're making your 5x or plus profit margin.
Yes.
We've talked about listing and, turnover, selling 90 days, or, keeping the flow going, not sitting on pieces for too long. But what the thing that jewelry resellers need to do that they don't want to do is you need to do your bookkeeping. You need to
Ah,
have a
yes.
schedule. Do not say, oh, bookkeeping's the thing I do when I'm done, because you're never done and you'll never do it. You have to have a set day and time that you do it and get into a routine, whether it's Monday morning or Friday afternoon or whenever you are your sharpest. Do your bookkeeping. Don't be super generic. Make sure that you consult an accountant that you're set up properly. Make sure that your business expenses are on a different credit card than your personal expenses. Make it easier for yourself. Have a separate bank account that your sales are income is going into, so it's separate from your personal. Do your bookkeeping and know your numbers. So if you only sell on one platform, it's easy to use their reports to see how you're doing. But if you're selling on multiple platforms, if you're going to events, if you have different channels, you need to do your own reporting within your own bookkeeping tool. And yes, it's another subscription that you have to pay for, and it is another expense to your business, but it is very key, and it is worth investing in early in your business and getting it set up properly than having to, once you're successful, go back and redo the whole thing. So we don't want to do it, but you have to do it. Put yourself on a schedule. Know your numbers.
Yeah, I do that too because I keep track of, I mean, I save all my receipts and I keep track of where I buy something from. So, if even if I buy something at a yard sale, I'll write the date and I'll say yard sale, jewelry lot, $40 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I have it's like an actual planner, and I write everything by hand. I mean, I have stuff done electronically too, but for me, I notice when I write it by hand, it just really helps me get a clear overhead view about what I'm spending, what's coming in, what's going out.
Absolutely. And I know that it's expensive, but I have invested in QuickBooks, and they do have a system with which they can pull the transactions out of your bank account. So all you really have to do is tell the system where to put it, and you
Hmm.
can automate a lot of your transactions, which will save you a ton of time with bookkeeping. So I'm a big fan of that tool. But I just think, this year my reports were really important to me because I am growing my business. And so I have decided, because it's a side hustle and I have a full time income, I'm reinvesting all of my profit right now in growing my business. And so there's not like a number in my bank account where I can say, oh, I made this much money, because I never took it out and put it in my pocket. Right. So, how do we track how our business is doing and how much profit there is when you're not taking the money out and putting it in your pocket? And what I could see from my reports is that my sales were up over 100% from last year. My repeat buyers were up over 100% from last year, right? So I can look and say, okay, well, I didn't put any money in my pocket, but I can see the growth of my business, and I can see that the tactics and things that I've been doing and trying are working. And I can also estimate, if I stay on this trajectory, how much money I'll put in my pocket, like eventually.
Yeah, that's really smart too, because I've heard that from many resellers much bigger than me who have said that. I mean, if you're looking to for the first few years when you're growing your eBay business, the best thing to do is to reinvest it back. It's like you don't want to take that money out and pay bills with it, like your personal bills, because then your business doesn't have any, like, how are you going to buy more inventory? How are you going to buy more shipping supplies or whatever you need? So you basically need to keep reinvesting that until you
Yeah.
can take some off, and that usually takes at least a year, but for many of us more than that.
It's a commitment. Like, as we said at the very beginning of this podcast, and we mentioned it in episode 1, this selling jewelry is not like a quick flip business where you can make a lot of money fast. Very, very rarely are you going to be able to do that. The only people that do that are like people who inherit incredible collections that they paid $0 for, and they're selling it for really cheap, and making it fast. This is just not that kind of business. So it is a longer term commitment, and but it is something that if you put the time and effort in, you can grow a solid, reliable income over time. And there is a method with which, if you assume that you're going to be, after fees, after commissions, all this stuff, the shipping costs, all this stuff, if you assume you're going to make 20-25% profit, there is a model with which you can pay yourself 10% of your sales, and then your business will keep 10%. So you can give yourself 10%, say, put 10% back in your business, and then your buying power is that 10%. Or, well, actually, you consider your cost of goods as part of that money that you spend, so it's not part of the profit. But your business would then have that 10% to like save up, so that when there's like a great opportunity to buy a lot of things but it's really expensive, you've got a little bit of buying power. I choose to just reinvest all of it at the moment, because I can see where I want it to go, and I want to get there faster. So time is the question. I did, like, my gross number for last year was about 35,000, and this year my goal is to do 50 gross, right? At 50 gross, I feel like it's really worth my time in the side hustle to profit that 25%. And in time, like, I want to do this in my retirement. This is basically my retirement plan, and I'm 45 now. So if I can retire at 55 and then just do this jewelry business as like my retirement job, then that would be a great way to get me to an early retirement. And that's kind of what I see it in terms of long term, where I'm going with it. I think it's great to know where you're going with it. Do you want to be a stay-at-home mom? Do you want to have 2 more kids and be able to stay at home with them when they're 10? right? Okay, you start this now, you build it, time, work your business, treat your business like your business. Rachel Strickland says, treat your business like your business. And in time, you will get to a place where you are paying yourself a livable wage while doing something that seems fun and that you like doing.
I totally agree. And I think that's so profound because I don't think people really look at it that way. Most people get into this because they just need to make a quick, $100 or whatever the case may be. But I also think it's important too, and I think you touched on it a little bit, was, you really need to set aside money for those unexpected bulk buy opportunities. You need to have, I don't know, $1,000, however much you can, save, because the opportunity will come up where someone will say, "Oh my gosh, I have all these pieces. I'll sell it to you," and you need to be ready to say, "Yes, I'll take it." Right.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think we need to include in our business budget, is money put aside for these bulk buy opportunities.
Yes, 100%. So I didn't want this episode to end without talking about that aspect of it, because I know it's something that people drag their feet on. It's not the fun part of business, but doing the bookkeeping on a schedule, knowing your numbers and setting targets, estimating what you think you're going to make, estimating, what you think you're going to spend, and creating budgets and things like that. It's not the fun part of reselling, but it's the part that if you don't know how to do it, you need to know how to do it. And in your first couple of years, while you're learning the ropes, these are the things that you should be putting some time and effort into, because the numbers are everything, and they show you where you're headed and where you're going to go, and you can see if you're meeting your targets or not meeting your targets, and you can start to understand why you're meeting those targets or not meeting those targets. And those numbers may have you changing what you're doing. They may have you make decisions that, I know for me, when I saw my metrics after the first year of jewelry only, I didn't make any money in my first year. I washed, and that is because I didn't have a high enough profit margin. I was doing the 3x profit margin, and it was not enough to make money, with the
Right.
buying mistakes, with the pieces that didn't sell, with having to clearance things that I bought in bulk that I shouldn't have. I didn't make any money my first year. And if I hadn't seen the numbers, if I didn't know that, I might have continued on this path and just basically just donating my time to do this. And like, it's a lot of effort and risk and all of that to be not making any money. So you need to know the numbers, that and make decisions based on those numbers, uh, in order to make a profitable company.
Yeah, you're so brilliant, Jen. I think you could totally teach a class on this.
Yeah, I mean, I have taught classes in the other world that I live in about make having a business. If it's crazy how a lot of people, they they sell a couple things, but they don't treat it like a business. They treat it differently. So for example, I work a lot with artists who edit videos or who film things, and they bill their customers and they film things, but they see themselves as a filmmaker. They don't see themselves as a business. But the minute that you create an invoice or sell something, you are a business according to the state and the IRS. You are a business, and you need to run your business. And I think when people can make the paradigm shift from just being a reseller to being a business, you're a business that resells, that mindset will help you make good decisions, put in place policies and procedures for yourself, and help you,
Help you
decide what you
plan.
want to do. Yeah. Not everybody wants to make a full-time income doing this. A lot of people just like doing it on the side. It's a hobby, and fulfills something in them, great. But it's still a business and you're still paying
Right.
taxes and commissions and things. So still do the bookkeeping, still do your taxes, still treat it like a business and try to be profitable.
Yeah, so true, so true. All right, Jen. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share? Or I don't know if you have online socials where people could follow you, and maybe, some of our listeners may want to buy some of your jewelry.
Yeah, well, you can find me on eBay. I'm Stone Blue Collectibles, and that's the name of my store. So just backslash Stone Blue Collectibles on eBay. On Whatnot, I'm Oso Diva, and that's OSODIVA. I do not have any shows scheduled at the moment, but who knows, when you're listening to this podcast, go check it out and see if I have some shows. And on Instagram, honestly, I don't remember what my name is, but you can search
Well,
Stone
you
Blue
can send it
Collectibles.
to me. You
I'm
could send it to
absolutely
me, and
terrible with social
I'll put it
media.
in the send it to me, and I'll make sure to put it in the show notes. That way, if people want to follow you, because I know, people will, because you've given
Okay,
us so much fantastic information, and they're going to be so blown away. So,
great. I if you want to learn more about how to run a business, definitely come follow me. I will put some content up, after this to get people started with that and a little bit more information, especially on the accounting side of jewelry reselling. But yeah, I'm just terrible with social media and I haven't really bought into it, even though I know it could greatly improve my company. I'm still behind in that regard.
see me, I'm the opposite. I love social media, and if I could just do that all day and make all the money I needed to make, that's what I would do.
Well, you're on your way because you have a fantastic podcast, which has a
Oh,
really
thank
great
you.
community behind it. And we really don't have a lot of jewelry reselling content. So I think the more people that, I think everyone will want to jump on this podcast and look through the history of it. And I think, I know I know this content is very desired. So once it's, this could be it for you. You could be doing this.
I hope so. That's the whole reason why I created this podcast, because there's a bazillion and one reselling podcasts, but there was nothing specific to jewelry. And there's
Nothing.
also jewelry podcasts, but those are more for jewelry designers, people who have jewelry stores. There was
Yes.
nothing in there or that I found that I could search. There was nothing jewelry reseller related. So
It's a void.
yeah, I
So
really believe this
everyone
is something
follow
we need.
Desiree and go to
Thank
her
you, Jen.
links. She's making content. She's get on her socials and follow her because she's doing it. She's doing all that, getting all the information out. I'm still just, in my little isolated world, but she's got the stuff.
Well, you have to promise me that maybe later on this year, we will be able to check in with you again and see how things are going,
Absolutely.
and you can give us an update on how things are, rocking and rolling in your business. And if you ever come to Las Vegas,
Oh, for sure.
you and I will go out
Shopping.
sourcing together. Yeah. Or maybe if you come during the jewelry show,
Yeah,
we'll go to
absolutely.
that together.
I mean, I really do think that we, as jewelry resellers, need more community. We need to have more places where we can connect. So I'm absolutely a voice box for that.
Cool. All right, Jen. Well, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge, and just, sharing everything you know with us on today's episode. And like I said, for those of you listening, I will have all of Jen's information in the show notes so you can connect with her as well.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.